You own a piece of land. That's what real estate investing is about. I want everybody to buy their own house if they can.
Tell renters, you will never see that money back. That rent check you pay that landlord, you will never see it back.
The worst to me is all the don'ts that people put on you. Even if you can't do it all overnight, learn a little bit, and then you can apply that knowledge to the can-do attitude.
If you're looking to do something, don't do it alone. Be with people that are doing what you want to be doing. Welcome to episode 42 of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia. I'm a local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna Bilek, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor.
And today we are joined by another wonderful guest, a good friend of ours, Miss Krissi Wyss. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Good to see both of you.
Awesome. So Krissi is one of our RPM communities. We were able to meet a couple of months back in Charlotte, but we've been talking and communicating. She's an agent. She's an investor as well. So we wanted to have her come on, share her experience and her experience in the real estate space. But before we do that, do you mind giving a quick introduction about where you're from and then what initially got you introduced into real estate?
Yes, no, I would not mind at all. I would love to. Yeah, so I live in Columbia, South Carolina. I've lived in this kind of the center part of the state. It's our capital for almost 20 years now. We used to live in the upper part of the state, Greenville. And so I go back and forth between both areas as an agent, actually. And my husband and I started investing in real estate a few years back. I was looking for a business to start, got my license, and then we started investing in real estate.
So you and your husband invest together as a team, correct?
We do, yes. My husband travels full-time in the sense that he travels once a month, usually internationally. He trains pastors and leaders in other countries. So he helps me when he's here with a variety of things. And then 2 to 3 weeks, certain months, he's gone. So we work on that together, though.
Were you always in real estate, or what did you do before real estate?
Well, so I have done a few things. Definitely I'm a person who likes to experience life by doing things. So when I was first out of college, I actually worked for Children's Protective Services in Houston, Texas, where I grew up.
Oof.
Yes. So my job was the civil side of investigating child abuse. And it was a pretty immersive type job. And then I eventually went to a Bible college in Oklahoma, and that's where I met my husband. So I moved to Switzerland from there.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I lived in Switzerland for a couple of years, and then just a couple of years into our marriage is when we moved to Greenville, South Carolina. So when I moved to Greenville, one of the first things that I looked into doing was getting my real estate license. At the time, we were working at a local church up there, and I ended up being talked out of it a little bit. And I always look back and think, oh, I should have just done it way back then. So I did not. So I started thinking about myself recently as the empty nester real estate agent and investor, because once my kids got to that age, I wanted to start a business. And so that is when we started looking at investing. My roundabout way to investing is getting my license to be an agent, which I'm really glad that I did, because I actually really enjoy that part of real estate, helping buyers and sellers with their family homes or whatever it is they're looking for, as well as real estate investors.
Krissi, what did you know about real estate before you actually got in? Because I know you got licensed and you went full force on that.
Yes. So not much. The only things we had done were buying our own properties, and we had only done that a couple of times. And then as often as I had thought about, we should really look into getting some kind of rental properties, we had a couple of friends who did it on the side without learning much about it. Sometimes people will move, I'll keep my property and rent it out. And then they just put it on autopilot from there. We had a friend who did that up in Greenville, and he asked for our help when his tenants moved out. His place was in Greenville. I think it was like a duplex, and he had moved back to Texas. So we were already in Columbia. We drove up there to go look at the property for him. I forget what it was he wanted us to do exactly. But his tenants had played paintball inside the property.
Oh my.
So it was like, and they used like primary colors, is what I remember. It was like wall to wall paintball in that place. I don't know if they just did it as like decor. I don't know what they were doing. I don't remember too many more of the details or what he found out about that. But when we looked and gave him a report, I think he was like, I am done with this. I am never doing this again. So there was a little, and we had another friend who had it, a few other friends who had not great experiences. So I think we were a little bit timid about any kind of investing initially. But I'm so glad that we didn't stop ourselves from doing it, because then I learned once you learn more and you learn some things about doing it, there's actually ways. It's not going to safeguard 100%, but there's ways of doing this successfully.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, some of those risks are worth the return. Like, it's not always easy. It's not pretty. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
Exactly. And that has been 100% my experience as an agent and as an investor, is that, to be honest, everybody who, if you're thinking about doing it and you're not doing it yet, it is going to be a lot of hard work. 100%.
Yeah. So what came first, Krissi? Was it you becoming licensed and helping people the traditional way, or did you buy real estate yourself as an investor?
So I actually got my license first because with my husband traveling so much, we were talking about investing, but there was just this, okay, neither of us quite knows enough to move forward. Okay, I'll get my license and learn what I can. Now, what I figured out after getting my license is that these are two different things and they go well together, but at the same time, it's also two different things. So I got my license, and funny story, as far as getting my license, I hit the ground running and started working as an agent. And as we all know, as an agent, you don't get paid till you close. I had several people who asked for help, but it was like free help. And then the next people ended up building new construction. So I had my license almost a year before I actually had a closing. But then I had a bunch of closings to the point where I got nominated for Rookie of the Year. And my broker at the time was like, so because there were a few other people that started at the same time. How did you go from you hadn't had any closings and I'm like, I think the timing they built out, but I just kept going.
Yeah.
I just kept going. So I was an agent first and worked at a certain point, probably about a year or so into that, I started thinking, I'm not really doing what I want to do as far as investing, but now that I've gotten a rhythm going in my agent work, I can also put more time into learning how to invest. So our first investment property that we just bought it on MLS. Actually, it was probably my first closing. It was one of my first closings that were all clumped together there. And it was just a really cool house in our town that we thought, I think this might actually be a good short-term rental. And so we bought that property on MLS, and it was one of my first agent deals as well.
Well, that's awesome. That's a cool story, because we talked to several people that they were investors first, and then they're like, maybe I should get my license to save on commissions and things. And then we were agents first, and then decided, well, wait a minute, we don't want to work for money forever, so maybe we should get into investing. And it sounds like yours was almost parallel. Like, you knew about investing and you knew about real estate agent stuff, but you didn't know much about either. So you were like, okay, let me get this first, and then I'll figure out. Like, yours was almost in tandem, like at the same time. It wasn't like a chicken and egg scenario.
Exactly. And of course, of course I did it that way, because it's just, okay, I'm going to do all of this. I like to do it all. Like we talked briefly, and we'll talk a little bit more probably about my investing, but it's like not just one thing.
Yeah. We'll get into that a little more. Have you found, because we've talked a lot about, at least I know we have, as an agent who have become investor savvy, like it's helped us a lot to become better agents. Do you think maybe that was part of your success, was that you did have an investor mindset, and so you maybe were a little different than other agents?
Yes, I would say probably also because I feel like learning the whole scope as much as I could. There's a lot more that I could learn about real estate, so much more. But learning all of that just helps put all the pieces into place really quickly. Helps also with evaluating and looking at properties to say, what are you can kind of quickly look at comps because, you're doing it all the time as investors. So you can quickly gauge all of that. It is like a switch back and forth in thinking. But I like that because I like both sides of it.
Yeah, I like how you put it because it is two separate sides of the traditional home buyer, which I love helping people buy and sell the traditional
Yes.
way. But the investor mindset is definitely a whole different topic. And I like what you mentioned when you first started. It took a little bit of time, and I can relate to that in terms of getting started. Some people are really great and get sales in their first month, which is awesome. When I started, it was right around the pandemic, and it was a crazy time to start. Not because
Same.
people don't want you in their homes during that time, but also for those who remember that interest rates were historically low. So as a newer agent, you're mainly working with buyers. So I learned a ton just by writing offers with what was working, what wasn't. And then by the time it became a little bit more, the interest rate higher, and it became a little less competitive. It's still competitive here in my market, but I learned a ton just the traditional way. And now as I guide towards investors and helping investors, just like you said, Krissi, you're always going to be learning in this business. There's no way that you're going to know everything. There's so many strategies, so many different types of buyers and sellers. And so I just wanted to say I can relate to that.
Yes, it's just an interesting world. And you're not only dealing with the properties. Sometimes we are thinking properties when we think real estate, but really it's just as much, probably more people work because you're dealing with lots of different personalities and you want to help people, you want to engage, you want to communicate in a way that is helpful to them.
Like an agent, a therapist, a best friend, a priest for them to confess their sins to. Like you end up being like this multifaceted like individual because you're right. It's not just the house part. Then you end up being this like all these different hats that we have to put psychology hats on.
Yes. And so that really makes it fun to me. I was always the person who I couldn't really imagine myself sitting in one place and doing the same thing day to day. And I was actually, sometimes I used to would make myself feel bad about that. Like, why can't you do that? Somebody else could sit in an office and do that. But it's just the way I'm made. And I'm really thankful that I can channel that by doing what I do. Like literally every hour is different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I was in an office for 20 years and I was like, this can't be all that there is. So I shoehorned myself into it because that was what was expected of most of us. Right. But it got to the point where I was like, this can't be the only thing. And here we are. So I relate with that comment about not being able to sit at a desk doing the same thing over.
I love the variety of people and properties and just, what you got to go out there and figure out and get done and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, Krissi, us three, we're all agents, we're all investors. But I'm just curious, in your opinion, what are some attributes that other investors who aren't agents, what are investor-friendly agents attributes? What can somebody look for when they're actually trying to meet with somebody like us?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that is something that I learned. So for a certain time, I was on a team and we were very investor focused. So that was a couple years in between when I first learned. So I learned a lot about working with investor buyers in particular. And some things that I found that are really important when you're working with investor buyers are off the front, in the beginning, right away, help them understand the picture of what it means to invest in your area. So I'll just tell you, and if anybody's looking to invest in South Carolina, one of the biggest surprises for a lot of people are the taxes that you pay here on investment properties. In a lot of other states, it might be the same amount of property tax, but we get significant discounts on our property tax in our primary properties. So our property taxes are pretty low compared to a lot of places. But if you are looking at an investment property that you don't live in, it's a different rate and you can't go by the numbers because of the difference with the deductions that you get in your primary property. So for example, here, if somebody's looking to buy a $200,000 property, they need to plan in their numbers for about $6,000 a year in property taxes.
Wow.
Yes, it is shocking for most people. One of the things that I didn't realize in the beginning working with investors is that even people with experience might not look for these important numbers that they need to add in when they are trying to determine if this property is going to work for them. Just helping people understand the big picture. I think when they're investing in my area, they're going to want to know that. Insurance is pretty reasonable still here. I know in some areas that would be what you'd be looking for. You want to know right off the bat what the insurance is going to look like. We do have some flood zones. I guess every area probably does. So, they're going to want to know if that's in a flood zone, what that's going to cost them, which for us is still a fairly reasonable additional piece of insurance. It's not something that's not like the taxes. It's not that big of a difference. And then you want to ask them like who their ideal tenant's going to be so you can help them. Because a lot of times when I've talked to investors, they are not from the area. So they don't really know exactly what they want. So if I ask them up front who their ideal tenant is, then I know what area to start focusing on. And then another thing for our area is that our rents are still fairly low compared to other parts of the country. So even though our properties, you might be able to buy something cheaper than somewhere else, you've got to add in the fact that you've got these big, high taxes to pay. And then your rent is not going to be maybe what you might have in mind from your area.
Okay.
So those are some of the things that I would want to communicate. You don't want to scare somebody off, but before you really delve way into this and really get going, you want people to know things up front. So another thing that I would want to ask investors, what are their goals? What is it that you're wanting to do if you're going to invest here? Because another big challenge that I had when I was working with all those investor buyers a couple of years ago is everybody wanted a duplex or a triplex. I have come to find out we have very few of them in our area. The University of South Carolina is right in my town here. And so we do have an area where there's quite a few of them. A lot of them don't really come on the market that often. So if I were setting up a search for someone in my MLS system, I could check multifamily and send them all of those because it's not like they're going to have hundreds to look at.
Same thing on my market. Yeah. Yeah. Krissi, you brought so many great points. And for somebody that's looking to invest in your market, that's why it's important to have a local agent. She mentioned the property taxes. We haven't had anybody talk about the difference between if you're buying a home as a primary residence versus an investment property. If you're just going off of what they say on Zillow or on MLS, and that can make or break a deal that you can buy a property and it could be a huge surprise when that tax bill comes and you're negative cash flow, right, Krissi?
Exactly. Yes. They would be so surprised if they were to come in person at closing, like the attorneys will usually mention it, because one of the other things that because of that difference in taxes, every time you close on a property here, whether it's your primary or an investment property, you actually have to go to the county afterwards and tell them that it's your primary. Otherwise, you get taxed at the higher rate. They'll automatically tax you at that unless you tell them otherwise. Yes. Wow. So I had a neighbor that happened to, and she called me panicking, like, I don't understand. And so at a certain point, I don't know if attorneys were doing it as much, but every closing now, the attorney will say, you're going to need to do this, and explains the steps to them for non-investor buyers. Investor buyers, you're good. You're set up for your high taxes. Way to go. So our area is still a good place to invest in, even with those taxes, because are reasonable. And we still are having certain areas. We've got good appreciation, not astronomical, but good, solid appreciation as well.
Yeah. And this is why it's important to have an agent like you, or Nico said, like an investor-friendly agent that's knowledgeable, because there's the taxes, but there's also like local laws or changes coming to laws. Like you might have a certain investment strategy or a long-term like hold that you may want to do short terms, but you as the agent know that the city council is currently looking at limiting short terms, be the case for your town. But like it's things like that as an out-of-state investor, you just don't know, and it could cripple your investment.
That's exactly right, because we've had some changes specifically in those regulations, although our area is still pretty friendly. You just have to register, and then because there's the cities and the counties and all of them. Another area is planning to make some changes within short-term rental regulations.
The allowance of them.
really good to be on
Mhm.
top of all of that. And like I always tell everyone, and it's we remind ourselves in our investor community, these changes don't mean, oh, I can't do this anymore. It just means, oh, wait, I need to think about this differently.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked a lot about the agent side and being an agent friendly, but I'd love to learn about your current real estate portfolio in terms of what you currently invest in your main strategies. I know you have your hands in a few different strategies, but do you mind sharing what's going on and your portfolio,
Yeah.
your current portfolio?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind at all. So, like I mentioned, we started out slow and steady with that short term rental. This house was actually renovated when we bought it. The woman was an art teacher and a real estate agent.
Oh,
And we've got a little, so I'm in a town right outside of Columbia. It's called Lexington. And we've got this little main street that's restaurants are going in, and we've got
Mhm.
some music, a little amphitheater. So there's things. So this house is walkable to all of that, walkable to a couple breweries and places like outdoor walking path and just a lot of things. So it's a great location. So we didn't know exactly what we were evaluating. We were just like, ooh, this looks like it'll work. And it has. We've been super hosts since we started, and we've been able to increase our nightly price has pretty much stayed the same, but we've been able to fill our calendar more. And so we've learned a lot in that. So I like that strategy, although we haven't bought more in that area. We're definitely open to that and looking at different options for that. And then the next one that we ended up purchasing, I found it off market through my agent work.
mhm.
And we ended up one of our daughters was able to move in, and she's got some roommates in there. And it's a great little house in a great part of town. And we really like to buy things that we have like at least two strategies that will work. So that's what we've been able to do so far. And then last year, we were able to buy a long term rental. The home isn't in a location that would work well for short term, or we probably would have gone that route, but we've got a long term rental. We were able to negotiate a seller finance deal. It's a shorter term seller finance, but it worked well for us in this situation. And then I partnered with a couple others, and we are working on acquiring properties that we can renovate so we can fix them up, flip them, and then we'll turn around and sell them. So one of my partners, this is actually her third one, but for me, it's the first one in joining the partnership that we are in the middle of now. And we are working on a couple more as well that we will probably get going here in the next few weeks.
Wow.
Interesting. So in this partnership, what are the roles of the partners in the partnership? Nico was going to go in a different direction, but now me.
Yes. The one who started the very first project on her own really likes doing the project management part of it. So she's the project manager. I am the acquisitions manager. And then we've got a financial manager, the other partner. It's loosely divided right now. We're all willing to jump in and do what we need to do, and that is what we're doing. Specifically, those are our areas that we're
Mhm.
supposed to be covering. For my part, I look at off-market properties. Something that has changed in our state is that it is illegal. I'm not sure exactly of the rules. I haven't been wholesaling, so it didn't really affect me, but I don't have as many wholesalers to go
Yep.
to. The former wholesalers are buying properties and then selling them because they can't do any kind of double close or anything like that. So that has been a little bit my challenge, but there's still a few out there who have changed their method and they're buying them and selling them that
Interesting.
way.
Yes,
Yes.
and the wholesaling thing in Virginia, I know it's changed as well. You can still wholesale, but there's a requirement to have a real estate license or be affiliated with someone with a real estate license in order to do wholesaling. So I agree. I think I've seen less of the 20 something year olds that are like dialing everybody and getting these properties under contracts and just winging it out there into Facebook worlds, and seeing more of the organized wholesalers that actually deal with a brokerage or a license of. So again, another good reason to know your local agents.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And all of us are licensed agents.
Yep.
One is not active at this point in our partnership. We're constantly just looking at what we can find on MLS, talking to other agents.
Mhm.
Doing the agent part of it is also very helpful in what we're doing.
Sounds like you have a good rock star team. So I'm just curious, where did you meet all your partners?
So we're all local.
Okay.
And we actually met. We were part of a network that was just women investors. And we met through that. I guess they may still be active now, but it's not something that we stayed a part of. It was actually more of a mentoring community. So it was pretty expensive to join. So a lot of us will say, we are so thankful that we paid money to get to know one another because through that, despite the cost, I will say that in the current community that we're in, the value compared to the price of being part of this community is, and it was not that way in this other community, but we met each other and it was a slow relationship for us because we met, over 2 years ago. So we were all just plodding along and there were some partnerships that were formed that dissolved afterwards. So for all of us, it was a slow work toward partnership. And then as soon as we did, we just hit the ground running together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I did have a question about another property that you had. So you mentioned that you bought one and your daughter is currently occupying it with
Yeah.
roommates. And
Yes.
that is so cool. I think we've had a guest talk about something like that. Did you guys buy it intentionally as a house hack? And did they put like a low down payment or did you buy it as an investment?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We bought it intentionally as a house hack and it worked out. It's worked out really well.
Okay. That's one of the benefits of house hacking, right, Krissi, is to buy a property
Yes.
with the intentions of renting out a portion to help offset some of the cost, right?
Exactly. Yes. So that worked out really well. It was ideal. It was what she wanted. And we looked at a lot of other stuff and then we found this off market. So that was really because how the market's been since getting my license in 2020 till now, like 2020 and 2021, I looked at so many properties with buyers because they had
Yeah.
to look at
So
10 or
many.
20 or 30 to get one.
Yep.
So we weren't quite in that place, but in the price range we were.
Yeah.
Still in that place. In our market, you can still find houses for under 200, but it's hard and it's hard to find it in a place that somebody they may not want to be in this part of town. They want to be in that part of town.
So do your kids know about real estate investing? I know you and your husband are very involved and it sounds like she's on board for this house hack. But
Yes. So we do talk about it. And I've got three. One is still in college and she's just finishing up. So she doesn't own a property. When mine went to college, it was like, oh, too bad I didn't start investing a long time ago because then I would have student rentals in place, which I didn't. But it did help me learn about it from the other side of it. And now I've got a good feel for what that looks like. I had looked at them over the years, but that's not something that we've bought so far. My oldest was also able to buy her own property, not an investment, but I still look at purchasing your own home as part of that process. You hear it said sometimes, okay, your primary property is not real estate investing. It is still an investment. You own a piece of land. That's what real estate investing is about. I love to help people understand what it means and what it looks like if they don't own property. I want everybody to buy their own house if they can. And if they can't, I want them to figure out how they can. Our first, right before she got married. So that was actually, she is now she's owned her home for 3 years, she and her husband, and they've improved it and it's appreciated. So now when they sell it at some point, they'll be able to buy something that costs more because they'll have that money that they'll make on that property when they go to sell it. Yes, they're in different work. So they're not really looking right now, but I think just learning about and seeing, I know that we've talked about land investing and different things. So I know that they're all on different levels interested.
Yeah. I think it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad that said your primary residence. I can never say his last name, so that's why it was Robert, his name. Yeah, that guy. He's the one that says your primary is a liability. And so I see that, but I think you're right. I think it's a little misleading because I tell like renters, like you will never see that money back. That rent check you pay that landlord, you will never see it back. At least if you're paying down your own mortgage, you may see it one day when you sell the house or like what we did with ours. I will never sell this house. Knock on wood. I say never, but we are able to tap into the equity with a HELOC. So like we've turned what I guess he would call a liability into somewhat of an asset because we're tapping
Right.
into the equity from it. We're still living in it, but now we're using that equity to buy other properties. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer to call it a liability you will never see again, ever.
Exactly. Yes. So I agree. Even if it's just on the level of, hey, let's buy something and own
Yep.
that piece of dirt with what's on top of it, it comes with a lot of work, but you still own that piece of dirt.
Yep.
And they're not making any more of that.
That it's a limited, finite supply. And when you sell it, you'll get something out of it.
So I know you and Antoine and your partners are working on this project. Is there anything next, like your next project? Do you have anything lined up?
We do, yes. So thankfully for Antoine's sake, he supports me in this, but he doesn't have to be involved in the flip process. So he helps me with what we've got that in our portfolio. And then these I work solely with my partners on. And we do have a couple things coming up. We've got a couple things under contract, 2 homes. And so we are working on through the process of with that to get to our closing. We've got a couple of hurdles that we're working on, but we're almost there. So it's looking good for closing on these properties, and which will mean then we'll have 2 more properties that we can renovate. And what's really cool, this is in an area where the homes are pretty inexpensive, but it will provide some nice affordable housing for somebody who can't afford anything over 200,000. It will be really nice affordable housing for some folks who are looking to
Yeah.
buy.
Wow, that's definitely a need. And I want to go in so many different directions, and I'm trying to control myself. We're going to have to do another episode. I have one more question about the partnership. And then I think we wanted to talk a little bit just about like your goals going forward in the next couple of years, how you're using these flips to fund your future goals. But as far as the
Yeah.
partnership goes, so I know you said there's an acquisition piece, a project management piece, the finance piece. Are you guys, how are you financing these projects? Like, how's that financial person? Are they out looking for private money? Are you guys funding it together? What is the financing of these projects?
Yes. I forget what my one partner did on the first one. Oh, no. I think that she financed the down payment and then she was able to get a hard money loan for the rest of it. So that's what happened on the next one. And we have been self-funding the down payment. These properties are looking different that we're working on now because of the amount of renovation that they need. So these are we're working on private money loans with these.
Okay.
It's a little bit of everything, right? Got to do it all. Not on purpose, but that's just how it is. And you just figure it out as you go. So we are in discussion for private money for these.
Okay. So you have an overarching idea of who does what, but then does each project, do you guys come up with a written agreement for each project on how proceeds are going to be divided?
So far, it has been, I would say, like the generous, everybody splits it 1/3,
3
1/3,
ways
1/3,
Yep.
and everybody's going to pitch in and do the work. And so that's really what it's been so far. And I guess as we move along, we can always change that. Because we have a contractor that we're using that the project manager was already in relationship with. There was a property that I was looking at and it would have worked with a different contractor. So then we were talking about we could always renegotiate the numbers if you're the one doing everything on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just trying to be generous with each other and also with our time so that it works for everyone.
Okay. So you're working it out as you go and then fine tuning things until you get to a
Yes.
place where, okay.
Yes.
So Anna mentioned that your overall goal with these fix and flips, like we have a friend, Alejandro, who just loves fix and flips and he wants to continue doing it and doing it, doing it and doing it. But that's not the case on your case, right? You love the idea of doing fix and flips, but is there an overall goal other than that?
Yeah. And the funny thing is once we really get rolling, we may end up, but it may look different when we do it. Like we've got some properties, something we'd love to be able to delve into here is some properties on our lake. We've got a very large lake in our town. They dub themselves the jewel of South Carolina. It's the fishing tournaments but the lakefront properties are amazing and have also appreciated very highly. And we'd love to move into something like that. But for me personally, and for I know my partners as well, I am looking to use proceeds to buy and invest in properties long term. And so that is definitely the goal with what we're doing. And if we can continue on with both of those, but in different ways. Like right now, there's a lot of hustle involved. Continue with both things, as well as my agent work. Just moving on to new levels in it is what I would love to see us be able to do.
I can totally relate to that. I'm also doing fix and flips here locally, but my end goal is to own rental properties that
Yes.
can sustain our lifestyle. So I totally understand that.
Yes.
We do have a few more final questions, but we are running on time. Other than real estate and real estate investing, which I know is a great passion out of all of us, that's why we're here.
Right.
What hobbies that you and your husband like to do?
So we're pretty simple. When he is home, the fun thing is we both work out of the house. So we do get to see each other the whole time that he is here and not traveling. But when we have the opportunity, we like to travel together. We like to spend time with our family. Again, pretty simple. Get some exercise or activity in, take walks. We've got some great places in our area to walk. Those are very simple, especially, like I said, at the empty nester stage. Any opportunity that we have to have one or all of our daughters and son-in-law with us is really fun. We've got family that live in states. They live up in the Greenville area where we used to live. I've got 3 nieces up there, so we've got lots of girls around. And because my husband and have been in full-time ministry in a church, we're very actively involved in our church. I have women over my house every week for Bible study. And we've got dogs. That's our fun. That's what we like to do is hang out with our family, our dogs, friends and family from church and different things like that, and travel.
Pretty busy to me.
What is your favorite place that you've traveled? And I know you've lived in Switzerland. It's actually high on my list of places that I want to go. But is there any particular place that jumped to mind?
Yes. So some of my favorite places, Switzerland, definitely. And there's several places in Switzerland. We used to go a different place each time we would visit, in addition to where the family lived, and see like a little different part of Switzerland. But one of the really cool opportunities that we had as a family is we went to the Philippines together, and we weren't really in a touristy part of the Philippines. So that was really cool to be there and experience that. And then the other cool part is we went through Singapore. And we stayed in Singapore for a couple days. And that is just a very cool, interesting place, interesting culture. And I like South Africa and London.
Been there. I love traveling as well. And I was blessed to be able to do a lot of traveling as a kid with my parents. And it really exposes you to different cultures, languages, and you realize how big the world is. And
Yes.
you get so used to your own little world here locally in South Carolina or in the DMV, like Anna and I. But once you go traveling, you realize that people live so happily with a lot less than what we have here.
Yes.
Really opens your mind, right?
It does. You realize sometimes, I think, okay, stop being so complicated. Yeah, because another thing that I didn't mention is that my minor in college was Spanish. So not only was I working in Children's Protective Services, I was the Spanish-speaking worker. So you can imagine when I came up and said, sí, puedo hablar en español porque tenemos hablar. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué tienes?
Yeah.
They were like, what?
I'm like, wait, are you going to the conference in Barcelona?
Right. And oh no, I
You're
should,
not?
No, I should though.
Yeah.
It's all
Sorry.
the travel things. And then I learned German. So I also speak German.
I just mean that it's a tax write-off, and then you can go to Spain because it's a business trip.
Seriously.
We all may
I
or may
know.
not be with the same brokerage, and they have a conference in Barcelona. Like,
That's right. I know.
hey, girl, sorry, you said Spanish, and I'm like, I know a place.
Oh, yes, exactly.
So, Krissi, what would you say is the best, worst advice that you've received? And it doesn't have to be real estate related.
Let's start with the worst. The worst to me is all the don'ts that people put on you. Oh, don't do that. Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I heard that as far as owning rental properties or even being a real estate agent. I don't know, don't. And that's one thing that I really try hard not to do, because I don't want to limit somebody else, even in their thinking. I want to help them see. And that's really probably leads me to the best advice, which is let your gifts make room for you. Like, just you'll explore them, and then you'll see, and then you'll find a way, and you'll find a way that it's working for you. So let your gifts make room for you. They will help you and propel you forward. And the don'ts, we can't do everything. So there are limits in a sense. But if we can keep those from preventing us from trying something, then we'll know if this is a gift or not.
Beautiful. I love the way you said that. And clearly you learned from your past, because you said it earlier, I really wish I would have done this sooner, but people were saying, oh, don't do that. And so it's good that you got to a place where you were able to open up your mind, because some people live in perpetuity, like forever in the I can't, I don't, I shouldn't, and then pass it on. And you didn't. You were like, I made a mistake and now I'm going to correct it and I'm going to encourage others. So kudos to you.
Krissi, what is some advice that you would give a younger self about what you know today?
Yeah, so I was also thinking about that. One of the things that I've talked about is I have had the can-do attitude. It's what's made me say, I can get married and move to Switzerland. Sure. When people were like, how are you going to do that? You're going to be so far from your family. So I've had the can-do attitude, but getting the knowledge and then applying it, that's what I would tell my younger self. Just learn, even if you can't do it all overnight, just learn a little bit, and then you can apply that knowledge to the can-do attitude.
Love it. Love it. And sounds like I know you're part of the church and things like that. And Ann and I are also both big book readers. I don't know if you could see that.
I know. I'm sitting in the one room in my house that doesn't have a huge bookshelf.
I'm just curious, very wise the way you're answering these questions. But, are there any books that have helped you to where you are today?
What's funny is we mentioned Robert Kiyosaki before, and everybody mentions his book, but it was a book for me too that was like opened my eyes to things. And I read that a while ago. Some friends of mine in California sent it to me a long time ago. But it was eye-opening, and I didn't really know what to do with it until later. Personally, some people take it, run with it, apply right away. It wasn't for me at the time, because like I've talked about, I do several different things. We've got like the ministry stuff that my husband does, and I co-founded that with him. Before that, we were pastoring. So I've always got all these different things going on. And this just came to be the place in life where I could then use and apply what I learned from that book. Another book that I really so there is an author, he's written lots and lots of books, John Maxwell. He's a leadership guy. He's written tons and tons of books, but Today Matters is just about, he talks about a positive attitude. He talks about making your priorities. It's just I think it's 12 simple things like to just every day you can apply in your life.
Love it. We'll definitely that one.
I read that one yet. I'm adding it to my list. I grabbed my phone and I'm like,
Today Matters, John Maxwell. It's a really good one. I think the subtitle to that one is Today's Choices Impact Tomorrow's Success.
That's the truth.
So, Krissi, our final question for all our guests is, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience with real estate and life in general, but how can we give back to you? How can we help you in these upcoming months, upcoming years with your business?
Or if you have a buy box that you're looking for and you want to put out there.
Yes, exactly. Our buy box is really right now for, I know and I love in long-term rentals, and it's the brick free to, we buy in our area. So we're looking in Columbia, South Carolina primarily. And then for our flips, it's a little more varied depending on if it works. So if anybody has any properties, if anybody is looking to buy or sell in Columbia, South Carolina, or Greenville, South Carolina, all of the areas in those markets. And then just being in community with y'all and with others that we have, that really does help me. I had gotten fairly busy, so Nico and I were on a team together where we communicate, and I haven't been able to participate live, but just being in those is really helpful. So if I can keep seeing y'all around in the community and others, that helps me.
Oh, yay. Yeah, Brian and I play the switcheroo. You never know which one of us you're talking to.
That's okay. I figured it's always me, even though I put Antoine's name, but I just put his name in case he wants to get on.
No, it's usually Brian. I put the purple heart. That's me. Otherwise, it's Brian.
But we're all part of Arson's RPM community, and we encourage you to be part of a community. If you're looking to do something, don't do it alone. Be with people that are doing what you want to be doing, and that's what really brought me there. And I got to meet Krissi and a bunch of other people throughout the nation, actually throughout the world, that are investing in real estate, which has really been awesome. And that's a shout out to Coach Garcia, because I feel like he attracts go-givers and things like that.
Yes, that's another one of my favorite books. Because that like literally is my life's motto. So when I read that book, I was like, I love this.
Yeah. And Chad epitomizes that. And that's what's really enticing. Because like you were saying before, there's these other groups that are so much more expensive. And it's a face, and they maybe do some recorded videos, and they have other people under them that do all the legwork, and you never see that person. But that's not the case in this community, and it's a small community. So I will encourage people, if they have questions, to ask any of us, because the doors close eventually. Limited number of people that can get in, and once the doors close, then you wait until one of us kicks the bucket. Wood that it's not anytime soon.
I know. Literally said that recently. I was like, people want to get in, they better get in, because I'm not going anywhere. Unless I get kicked out for some reason, which I don't foresee, but
yeah, now I'll be pushing up daisies first. So that's why I was like, if you want to get in, there's still a couple spots. And I think it's been Brian, who's the epitome of, I've said it before, like the cynic. This is like the value in the community. Like it's well surpassed, and it's well worth more than what he charges for it, and we're grateful for it.
Shout out to Coach. That's it for this episode. And Chris, where can people reach out to you? Are you on any social medias?
Yes, my name on Instagram is at Krissi Weiss or Krissi Wyss, but you'd be able to find me with my name, Krissi Wyss, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm maybe not overly active, but I am active on both of those. Yeah, we see each other. Yeah, Krissi Wyss.
We'll make sure.
And we can put it in the show notes.
Okay.
For sure. But you can reach out to me at N Garcia Official on all social platforms, or Nico Garcia on Facebook. And you can reach out to Anna at.
I'm Anna Bialik _ Realtor on Instagram, and Anna Bialik everywhere else.
Okay. And that's going to do it for another episode. Thank you again, Krissi, and tune in to next one.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.